Accessing.
When TV and radio collide.
Love it.
Wow. This is what you get. You're listening to JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars.
Don't touch that dial.
On 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Welcome back, everybody. Hour number 2 of the program. JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Alex, Kirry, Jeremiah Jensen. JJ, of course, has just declared Rob Gronkowski is the best tight end in the history of the world. So that's where we're at in this program. Look, Shannon Sharp, he was close on the list, but yeah.
Cold takes, huh? Is that bad?
I think we cornered you on that. The thing is that
who is he? Do you think he's top 3?
I guess I didn't ask you like, hey, I'm looking for the best one ever. I did. What
would Tom Brady's legacy have been without Gronk at the end of his career?
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I mean, how many Super Bowls would Tom Brady have without Gronk?
Did Gronk win that title with him, or did he come back the last year and he wasn't? Was he?
He was with Tampa Bay, yeah.
He was. So he won the title with him there too. Oh yeah, that's right. Did he dent? Is that when he dented the trophy? The super the.
I think so. Remember they were throwing it across each other.
Yeah, but I think that it was on a boat.
Yeah.
And so I think that's when he dented the.
They both got a little tipsy.
Well, little is not even close to what it was.
I think
a lot.
I don't think Gronk knows
what happened
any
that
other
day.
way, but a lot.
Our producer Alex is looking at us funny. Look it up. Look for the dented Lombardi Trophy.
Did they pull a J.D. Vance and break it?
That was at the Pats.
Oh, okay.
It was at the Pats. Why were they on a boat?
The boat was with the Bucks.
The boat was with the Bucks. Oh, that's when they threw it back and forth. The dent was just him being.
This goes back to my whole point: is how many Super Bowls did they win?
We forget. We just forget them all.
Which Super Bowl did they break the trophy? Which Super Bowl win did they get drunk? Which Super Bowl win did they do this?
Everybody was waiting for that. Was waiting for the Lombardi Trophy to be dropped to the bottom of the Tampa Bay. There,
that would have been something.
It would have been cool. Look. It would have been actually a cool story if they would have. I would have done it just because they would have gotten it back. Get some diver down there into the shallows. Come on.
Can you imagine?
Pirate treasure and Lombardi trophies. Let's go. All right. Our program brought to you by G2G Bars. All natural ingredients and no preservatives make the G2G Bars the perfect protein bar. Give it a shot today. Costco, Holiday Oil, Maverick, Associated Foods, and many other grocers in the refrigerated section. Get it started up here with the cut. Let's jump in right here. Let's talk some hockey.
It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is what made the cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
And, of course, this portion of the show brought to you by an incredible selection of Kia, Subaru, Chevy, Jeep, Dodge, or Ram, and now Mitsubishi. It's the Doug Smith family of dealerships. Nobody knows cars like Doug. Joining us on the program, he is our Utah Hockey Club insider for KSLSports.com and, of course, our all-around NHL knowledgeable dude. Cole Bagley in the program here with us. Cole, have you enjoyed these playoffs like we have so far?
Yeah, it's been great. I think what's been most exciting is how invested a lot of Utah fans are getting into the Stanley Cup playoffs, even though, their team has an extra long summer, but they're enjoying, I think the parity and the competitiveness of what this tournament has to bring. So it's been a lot of fun so far.
Hey, we're a hockey town now. We're an NHL market. We're looking at the Stanley Cup playoffs with a different eye. I mentioned it last night on the 10 o'clock news. I'm watching the Stanley Cup playoffs much differently, and I know a lot of people are. And as you're watching this first round, I think people that are new to the sport in this market are realizing just how incredible the first round is, Cole. Even though not all of these series are exactly competitive, some are. I mean, every series in the West is going to go 6 games. But what are your thoughts on the first round? Anything surprise you? Anything go exactly how you planned it would?
I think the East comes as for the most part, no surprise. Everybody knew Washington was going to beat Montreal, same with Carolina over New Jersey, Toronto over Ottawa. Maybe the only one that's somewhat surprising is, Florida 3-1 over Tampa Bay. I think, with Tkachuk's status up in the air before the playoffs started, and then just the way that, Tampa was a really strong team all season long. I think that's maybe the one in the East that's surprising. But the West has been fantastic. I agree with you. I think aside from the Stanley Cup Finals, I think my favorite round of the Stanley Cup playoffs is the first round because there's just so much hockey. I mean, you sit down at home for the evening and you can generally watch 2, 3, and even 4 hockey games, which is fantastic. And the fun thing about the West is, like I mentioned earlier, just all the parity. I mean, the President's Trophy team, Winnipeg Jets, are tied 2-2 with the St. Louis Blues. Dallas, I think, is arguably playing better than most anticipated they would against the juggernaut offensive team in Colorado. Minnesota was not playing good hockey to end the season. They're tied at 2 games apiece with Vegas, and LA and Edmonton are going to head. Now, if LA could just play the last 5 minutes of the third period consistently, I think they would have swept the Oilers by now. But you can't ever count out McDavid and Draisaitl just with how good and talented those players are. So no, it's been a really good first round. Who's
faking it so far? Who's the team that you look at and you go, yeah, I don't know if they're actually going to have enough to be able to get to that the promised land and hold up the Stanley Cup? Because Toronto, people look at and go, that's a phenomenal team, and they're up 3-1 on Ottawa, but I'm just not totally sold on Toronto. I look in the East, and it's hard not to look at Florida and that phenomenal game last night against Tampa Bay and think that they could. I mean, that's a team who's ripe for repeating. I don't know. It's just so competitive, and obviously matchups matter. But is Toronto good enough to go all the way and get the win in the Stanley Cup? Carolina's taking care of business against New Jersey. I mean, that's a 3-1 series as well. I don't know who I like right now out of the East, but Florida certainly made a push, and being up 3-1 against Tampa Bay is a good place to be for them.
Yeah, with Toronto, I think the second round is going to be very telling. I mean, obviously, anticipating that Ottawa doesn't complete one of the most extravagant comebacks of all time, it should be, Toronto and Florida in that second round. And I think we'll get kind of a feel of who's legit, who can really take this thing all the way, because every single year Toronto is a good team. It's just kind of the culture that they've built, but they've mostly been a regular season team. They've never really had what it takes to go the distance, at least for a very long time, in terms of winning the Stanley Cup. And so, Toronto, I don't know how legitimate they are. Ottawa kind of just crept into the playoffs. Nobody was really expecting them to do much. I mean, outside of really Brady Tkachuk, I don't think there's a whole lot of special things about that Senators team. And so Toronto's had a pretty easy first round matchup. But Florida's a team, if they meet them in the second round, that very well could end up being, whoever wins that series could end up being the Stanley Cup champion. I mean, you've got, the Florida Panthers, who are the reigning Stanley Cup champions. They are a in-your-face, physical, somewhat dirty kind of hockey team, and that's just their brand, and that's what won them, the Stanley Cup a year ago, and they're still playing that, and they got Matthew Tkachuk back, which means they're a dangerous team. In terms of the West, teams that I'm not entirely sure that they have what it takes to go the distance is obviously the President's Trophy winners and the Winnipeg Jets. They also have just been, for the most part, a regular season team, a team that has not been able to figure out, how to really make things work. Once they got to the postseason, Connor Hellebuck, the best goaltender in the world, is having an all-time, kind of choke performance where he's playing just completely the opposite of the way that he did during regular season. So second round will be very telling, but I'm just enjoying what this first round brings, because you never know what's going to happen on any given night, especially in the West right now.
Unlike the NBA and Major League Baseball, 3 teams down 3-1 can come back quite often in the NHL. In fact, 32 teams have come back from a 3-1 deficit to win a series. And Florida did it in 2023. The Canadians have done it the most all time, doing it 3 times. So with all that information, is there a team down 3-1 in the East that you think can make history and make that comeback?
If I was going to put my money on any team, it would be Tampa. Montreal is too young, in my perspective. They kind of just snuck into the playoffs. Washington looks really good. New Jersey's just not 100% right now. They're without some of their best players. And, again, Carolina looks really good. I don't take Ottawa very seriously. So if any team could do it, I would lead more towards Tampa Bay, just with, their goaltending and having an MVP candidate and Kucherov and, a solid player, like Gensel. I mean, they're a good team. I really thought they were going to tie the series up the other day, make it 2-2. So if I was, putting my money on any team, I would definitely say the Lightning above anybody else in the East right now.
Cole Bagley's our Utah Hockey Club insider for KSLSports.com. You look at some of these matchups. Where do you think that the hockey club would actually find itself in the next couple of years if you were to compare yourself to or compare the club to one of the teams who is in the playoffs right now, or could replace a team in the playoffs, or obviously next year people have their sights on what this could look like for the Utah Hockey Club being in the playoffs. So if we're to kind of project ourselves in the future here, what type of a style of a team matches what Utah is right now?
Oh, goodness, that's a good question. If we're simply talking a year from now, I think that, the team that they're probably going to most closely replicate is a team like Montreal, just given kind of a similar timeline in the rebuild and their age and, the youth that both of the teams have in terms of who you would more so want to try and replicate. I think with what they're doing right now is a team like St. Louis. They're going head to head with one of the best, the best team from the regular season, the best goaltender in the world, and they're tied up at 2 apiece, and all the momentum is with St. Louis right now. And so I think it's tough to kind of compare styles, but, in terms of where do I see them a year from now, probably a scenario like Montreal where, you're maybe getting in as, one of the wild card spots. You're a young team. You're trying to prove yourselves. And I think next year, while it's playoffs or bust, I think that's kind of the ceiling. This team hasn't been to the playoffs for 4 or 5 years. Most of the guys on the team have not, outside of, the obvious, the Sergachevs and Ian Cole and Ole Mata, most of the young guys on this team have never been to the playoffs. So I think next year, while it is playoffs or bust, I think it's more of just get in, get your feet wet. Maybe you can find some way to upset in the first round. But yeah, I think if you're looking at teams that they're going to probably replicate, I'd say more of a Montreal, but who you want to try to replicate is St. Louis, where it's like, look, we don't care how we got in, who we are, who we're playing. We're going to go toe to toe. We're going to match them in terms of energy. And, St. Louis they might just shock everybody and beat the President's Trophy team.
That would be amazing. You're right. The parity in the NHL makes that possible. We have seen 8 seeds do that, or I guess you'd call it a 4 seed in that situation, however you want to term that. But building off of that, looking ahead, you look at the West, and it's just one juggernaut after another. But history tells us not all these teams are going to make the playoffs next year. So which of the 8 teams in the playoffs this year in the West fall out so that Utah can take their place?
That's really tough. I don't know.
I'll tell you, last year Vancouver and Nashville were in the playoffs. They did not make it this year.
Who's going to go?
The Wild and Blues replaced them.
Who's going to fall off by 40 points next year?
But history tells you that somebody's not going to make it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see it being Winnipeg. Even if they lose this first round, like I said, they're just kind of a regular season team. They have a really good squad. Hellebuck's not going anywhere. Dallas is on the up and up. They've got a really good team offensively. They've only gotten better with adding Rantanen to their arsenal. Colorado is another offensive juggernaut. Vegas is an offensive juggernaut. Edmonton, same kind of deal. So, I think the teams that there may be some sort of opportunity to surpass is a team like St. Louis. I know I said that Utah would want to replicate what they did, what they did this year, and that's still true. But I don't know that St. Louis is going to, be the best team in hockey from the All-Star break or next year, the Olympic break, through the end of the year by picking up, I think it was like 35 to 40 points over the last 25 games. Yeah. I don't see them doing that again. Minnesota, I'm not entirely sold on them in terms of, them being able to put together a full season like they did. And I think LA, kind of surprised a lot of people, shocked a lot of people. And the fact that I don't think anybody really had them as a team that was going to go to the playoffs. So we'll see if they can sustain. But that's what's tough. This isn't – I think the East, there's a lot more parity. There was a lot more opportunity for teams like Ottawa and Montreal, to get in, whereas in the West, it was really, really tough. There was a couple teams fighting for a spot, down the stretch, but essentially, St. Louis was in with a few, it came down to the last few, but it's tough. The West is really tough, and the Central Division is even tougher. Arguably the best teams in the West all came out of the Central Division,
Mm-hmm.
so it's going to be really hard. But Utah was close, and there's only opportunity for them to get better. I don't see them taking a step back after what they accomplished this season, and with the prospects that are coming up, and with the amount of money they have to go and spend.
Yeah, in the East, the Islanders, Rangers, and Bruins did not make the playoffs this year after making it last year. The Bruins advanced, and, of course, the Rangers made it all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals, so it shows you how things can change in a year in the NHL.
Well, it's going to be an interesting next couple of weeks here as we kind of – because I'm sure our attitudes will change. We'll be like, wow, this team's playing phenomenally, and then they go to the second round, and it's a totally different beast because every team and every matchup is different, and so we're looking forward to see how this one goes. But, yeah, people in Utah are much more invested right now in these NHL playoffs and the Stanley Cup, considering what you're looking at is the possibility of where this hockey club could be next year in these playoffs and how difficult it is to make the playoffs. If you are a team we look at a team like Nashville and go, oh, we thought that they were going to improve with what they did in the offseason. And then when you fall that short and not even close to what you were performance-wise last year, it's wild. The NHL's a crazy beast. Cole Bagley, you can read his byline at KSLSports.com, and we're going to keep hitting him up during the playoffs here to get the insights as we keep going on in these Stanley Cup playoffs. Cole, have a good one, man. Thanks for hanging out with us today.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Cole.
Cole Bagley. Yeah, I wonder if there's going to be a because I look at all these teams and I go, okay, where could Utah kind of shoehorn itself into?
Well, I could see the Wild dropping out.
The Wild could I agree with them too. Like St. Louis, they had a great stretch. I could see them going the opposite direction next
Absolutely.
year. I mean, you could have easily seen a team struggle compared to what their expectations were. The expectations weren't that this was going to be a team that would win 12 in a row, going into the last month of the season. And so, yeah, it's hard. What'll be tough is if Utah goes through a rough stretch to start the season off next year, and then you're going, what? Then what? And because it is so competitive, and you've got so many, and they're going to try to make some moves in the offseason here. But, moves in the offseason don't necessarily always equal that you're going to suddenly just step up that production. I think the benefit that the Utah has is that they have all these young guys who have tons of great years of hockey in front of them.
Yeah.
And I think they want to spend a lot of them here in Utah, and so we're crossing our fingers that that's the case. So, all right, let's take a break. We'll come back. Hey, we got more to jam about. We got tons around the corner here when we return. We are going to jump in, have a conversation about the ACC and what they're going to try to do to make sure that they crack the top 5, crack the top 4 of power conferences in basketball, what they're doing. And it's, look, I'm not going to hate on it because I think you should consider this. I think the Big 12 is already going to make sure that they do the same thing that the ACC is going to consider as well. So stay right here with us. More to go around the corner, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.
Ladies and gentlemen, the biggest name.
You're locked in to JJ and Alex with the insight and analysis on the teams you can't live without. Presented by G2G Bars. This is 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
All right, everybody, welcome back. JJ and Alex, 97.5 the KSL Sports. And oh, you know what that sound is? It is a breaking news moment on the program here. Last fall, you saw that Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County had approved some plans for a downtown hub, a downtown sports and entertainment hub for
Look how trendy you sound.
sports and entertainment hub. Could I Oh, wow. I enjoy being in Salt Lake City at your sports and entertainment hub.
What are we doing this weekend? I want to go hit a hub.
I'll probably head down to the hub.
We'll meet you at the hub.
Well, that has now gotten a little bit more intense because the Salt Lake County has made a decision now because it's not just approving the plans for a downtown entertainment hub, but we've got some breaking news from the county council breaking news desk. We've got
hub desk.
We've got JJ here with us.
Entertainment hub desk.
JJ, what do you have?
The Salt Lake County Council unanimously approves 6.5-acre sale of land that includes a section of the Salt Palace to Ryan Smith's SEG, Smith Entertainment Group. The move brings downtown Salt Lake City one step closer to a major entertainment district around Delta Center.
So part of the Salt Lake, part of the Salt Palace and Convention Center, so a chunk of it, is it going to be like, so there are parts between the Netherlands and Belgium where the border runs through people's houses and they actually have to like mark where it is through the houses. Is that what we're looking at here?
Sounds like it.
You're gonna have part of the Salt Palace that's owned by Ryan Smith and SEG, and then the other part that's owned by Salt Lake County still. I don't get how that works, but we're talking 6.5 acres is not insignificant, obviously. I think that a full square block of what's a full square block in terms of
So it
acreage?
covers the Salt Palace from 300 west to 200 west.
I'm trying to figure what the acreage.
The base price of the sale is going to be $55.4 million.
Okay. One city
That's
block.
a large real estate transaction.
So one city block is about 4 acres. Okay. So you're talking about a block and a half, basically, of space and about $57. What did you say? $56 million worth of real estate.
$55.4 million.
I'm interested to see what they're going to do with it. I'm interested to see what SEG is going to do with the land itself, because obviously as they get closer to making this downtown entertainment and sports hub, because we're talking about whatever the new version of the Delta Center is going to look like on the inside, to make it sure that it's a
work has already begun there.
Hockey and an NBA stadium all at once. They want to revitalize downtown. There have been a lot of people, JJ, in the time that you and I have been working downtown that have tried to revitalize downtown, and some with better success than others. I think that you and I could both agree the downtown is in a better spot than it was 20 years ago when we first started working here.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot of work to be done. It's one of these things where people scratch their heads and they go, why is it the downtown kind of dies at night? You know, like that, it's still an issue. People make fun of the hashtag nightlife still in Salt Lake City because our city kind of shuts down a little bit. And I will say that a lot has improved, at least from the standpoint of feeling safe downtown.
Sure.
The amount of residences that have gone up just in the past.
That's positive.
Between Delta Center and the convention
people
center.
Actually live here, they're going to be here.
Yeah.
And then if you give them places to shop and work, they have reason to be here. And if you now have from the Gateway through this new district all the way to City Creek, that's quite a span of land in downtown that's dedicated to shopping and entertainment and dining and living, actual residences. So, from that standpoint, it should, once this is all completed, really revitalize and make this a bustling little area, which is, I think, the plan and why everybody's supporting this.
On 3rd West at 55 South, we're talking exactly a block from us, like, because we're at 55 North and 3rd West. So you're talking about that entire block that is the part of the Delta Center that is on 3rd West, that is that east side of the building. And then where you walk across the street there, you're at the convention center.
Correct.
Immediately.
Yep.
So
that block.
That whole block going
from 300 to 200.
From 300 to 200 gets taken over and is part of SEG. And then where 2nd West is, and then over to what would be West Temple, that part of the convention center would stay kind of the traditional Convention Center, then, is that what we're talking about? Or whatever they're going to do to make it look like a sports hub, sports and entertainment hub.
All I know right now is that land is now going to become part of SCG.
Okay.
And all part of this thing. And it's going to be interesting, fascinating, exciting to see it all come together.
Okay.
Because we're all trying to picture what that area will look like. We've seen the renderings, which is fun and cool and exciting. But to actually see it happen in person is going to be quite something.
Okay. Well, looking
but it's
forward
on the
to
way.
It.
It's
look,
a unanimous decision, and the sale is moving.
There are renderings that will mean a lot to some people, obviously sitting around on some computer somewhere that I think that, and we've seen some versions of this, but I think that now that they have the actual acreage plotted out of what they're going to be buying from the county and making that a part of what, this is, this deal. I don't know. Here's the deal too. I know people who live here in Salt Lake City. We still own a house here in Salt Lake, and when we lived here, there were people who were just full on like, nah, I don't like what downtown's turning into. And I think that this is a positive move. There are a lot of people who haven't liked to go downtown for years, and on top of the fact that as sports fans, we're a big fan of this. I think that this will revitalize a lot of what we've been trying to do downtown here. So here's hoping. So there you go. It's official. They voted unanimously to sell that. What was it? 6.5 acres?
6.5 acres.
6.5 acres of the convention center, the Salt Palace Convention Center here downtown in Salt Lake City, right across from the Delta Center. So we'll be interested to see what they're going to do with it. The Smith Entertainment Group. So there you go. JJ. I was going to bring this up with you because I think it's kind of interesting. I do want to mention also you can nominate the youth sports volunteer that you know for the Hercules Hero of the Week. You submit your nomination at kslsports.com/contest. You listen every Thursday, and we read those winners off for you. Celebrate the efforts of those volunteers who do an awesome job in your neighborhood with the Hercules Hero of the Week. Just go to kslsports.com/contest and nominate that person today. It's all sponsored by Hercules First Federal Credit Union and Beehive Meals. The ACC has been playing 20 conference games for quite some time, JJ, and they feel like now, this year, after the ACC put 3 teams into the NCAA Tournament, 2 who were summarily made quick exits from the NCAA Tournament. Duke, of course, represented the conference very well and got themselves into the Final Four, but I will say that the ACC, everybody looks at, and you assume for the years that I grew up, JJ, and for the chunk of time that we've, covered this sport, the ACC has always been the power. It's been a power. It's been, all the championships seem to have always gone through, not just the Tobacco Road schools, but the ACC was always that power conference. The Ken Pom ratings look like this now. The conference Ken Pom ratings went number 1, the SEC. Number 2, the Big Ten. And they're kind of close in numbers there. Number 3, the Big 12. Also pretty similar in numbers when it comes to those 3. So those top 3
They're
are not
the 3
in
best
question.
conferences. I don't think there's any debate.
You have a bit of a fall off to get to the Big East, but the Big East is for sure that next best conference. The ACC is way off and is way down the list and is the number 5 ranked team according to the Ken Pom ratings in terms of teams that are expected to go 500 or better in conference play. And the ACC thinks that removing 2 conference games and adding 2 other games that are in that, I don't know, JJ, that month before the season when everybody's trying to get as many wins
in those
as they
December
can.
conference games, which is always awkward and weird.
Right.
It feels too early.
Well, and I think that now you're going to find the ACC who's going, let's go to the 18-team conference or the 18-team conference schedule and add some non-conference games because that will potentially boost the league's standing in metrics and the metrics matter at the end of the year. The ACC is looking at that, and I think that Jim Phillips, as the commissioner, needs to probably say, hey, step back. How do we make ourselves the best, one of the power conferences again? This is a little step in that direction, but I think you see a lot of teams because I think we talked about this as well because the Big 12 already plays 20. They played 20 conference games.
They went to
this
the
year.
20 last year with the expansion, and they've already scrapped it.
And they're already going back.
Yep.
And that's going to help them in terms of metrics as well.
Teams need a break during the season.
So
18 is perfect number. 20 is too
20
many.
was a lot. And,
Yeah.
you know, it worked out for a team like BYU who had an exceptional season. But teams who are playing 20 conference games, it's a freaking slog.
That's a grind.
To try to make sure in the ACC, in the Big 10, in the Big 12, in the SEC, those are long stretches. 20 games of your 34 of your schedule end up being against teams that are just like you. And in the case of the ACC, what they're worried about is they kind of eat their own, right?
Yeah. Well, especially now, you look at the ACC, and what's the gap between them and the Mountain West Conference right now?
Not much.
It's not much at all. In fact, I think both had 4 teams in the tournament, if I remember correctly. The ACC had Louisville, Duke, North Carolina, and Clemson, and only one of those teams advanced past the round of 64. So the ACC has to do something to build its profile and to become relevant once again because it's fallen off. Yes, growing up, the ACC was the preeminent conference and was for a long, long time in college basketball.
Mm-hmm.
It is no longer, and it's barely above some mid-major conferences right now. They've got to make a change. But it makes sense, and they're not the only ones. The Big 12 did the same this year. They scrapped the 20-team schedule, a 20-game schedule, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see how that impacts the Big 12. It did feel like that was just too many. It feels like these teams are beating up on each other. And, you know, it's hard, though, because those 2 extra games allow some teams to play each other that otherwise wouldn't, which was fun. But you have to sacrifice something there, and I think it's worth it to sacrifice those 2 extra games. Maybe it's an opportunity for BYU to get a home-and-home with Arizona like they did this year, or maybe it's a chance to play Houston if you don't. You're going to have to give that up to create more balance and provide rest for all these teams in the conference and it's also going to open up 2 slots to play games against non-conference opponents.
Again, but like I said,
which will bolster your NCAA tournament resume.
That's what I was going to say is maybe instead of just being like, we'll add the 250th ranked team.
Don't go schedule
KenPom.
St. Francis or something like that.
But see,
go play a big-time team.
I think that if you
go play in a tournament,
if you sign yourself up for some of these tournaments, look, BYU went out to Providence and played Providence. That was not a great game. In fact,
didn't work out for them.
That was the biggest black eye on their resume of anything. Now, by the end of the year, it didn't matter.
If they were in the West Coast Conference, that would have doomed their NCAA tournament hopes.
Yes, 100%.
That's how much things have changed with membership at the Big 12. But that's the risk you take sometimes at that. But sometimes that risk is worth it for certain teams. Maybe that means a 1 or 2 jump in the seeding at the end of the year when the brackets are revealed. You don't know. It's going to make you better. So it's another opportunity for teams to go out and schedule other teams in the non-conference to bolster their resume.
Let's take a break. We'll come back. Yeah, we've got the top 10. We're going to play it next. We're going to force JJ to play it next. So stay right here. The theme is the NBA. The theme is, we'll just keep it. We'll keep it. No, sorry, the NFL. The theme is the NFL, and the theme is going to deal with the rookies taken in the most recent draft. So stay right here. More to go. 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.
Your home for the best coverage of the Jazz, Utes, and Cougars is right here on The Zone. This is JJ and Alex, presented by G2G Bars on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Meow. I used to think that they said, you need Kool-Aid. When I was a kid, I thought he said, you need Kool-Aid.
Kool-Aid.
You need Kool-Aid. I was like, I do, actually. You're right.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I actually do.
Don't we all?
There's a restaurant that I saw some guy reviewing a restaurant the other day, and they actually they make their own Kool-Aid in-house, and then they bottle it. And I was like, 10-year-old me might need to go to that restaurant.
Oh boy.
I don't know what it was, but bottling your own Kool-Aid is a...
That sounds nice, especially in the summer.
Yes, man. Absolutely. Welcome back to the program. JJ and Alex, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone. It's another edition of our Top 10 game. And the Top 10 game is a lot of fun because we have a 1-minute timer. And then JJ has to make some guesses. And we're going to go through. And you're not cheating, are you?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm not
I'm
cheating.
just wondering. Just asking. I have to ask. Okay?
Questioning my integrity.
Yeah. Well, stranger things have happened on this program than
good to know.
people just cheating. So now, with all the people that are taken in this recent draft, it's interesting now because those teams are already, obviously when you get a guy on your team, and let's say, for example, you are. I'll throw a name out there, and it'll actually be one that I'll give you a freebie on. Okay, and this top 10 is the overall jersey sales after the weekend.
That fast?
Yes.
Wow.
Because if you got a
Way
guy,
to go, NFL.
you got a guy, and he's on your team,
Makes sense.
and you get that jersey made, and immediately
It's Tuesday. The
you're the-
draft ended Saturday.
you're the coolest guy in the neighborhood, man.
Dang,
Oh, you
okay.
think the NFL's not prepared to start making a
No,
dime
I
off
know
of you?
they are. That's why I'm impressed.
Did you see the process on how they get those jerseys out on the floor, by the
Yeah,
way?
it's pretty cool.
So Nike finds out the pick before the family does.
Yes.
And the team says the pick. The NFL, the team, and Nike know the pick a good 90 seconds before the potential player does. They start making that jersey back in the back. They got the little they got the boards out there, and they're I don't know, hot gluing them on. Is that what they do these days? You hot glue?
Silk screen? Do they still do
that?
silk screening on those
Spray
jerseys?
paint. They just put a hunter on the back there.
It's
So,
pretty impressive.
Let's start the timer up here. These are the top 10 sales of brand new rookies drafted or are new members of teams going forward. JJ, are you ready?
Let's start the clock.
Hit the timer. Let's go.
Shedeur Sanders, Travis
Ding,
Hunter, Cam Ward,
ding, ding,
Ashton Genty,
ding,
Abdul Carter.
ding,
I said Genty. Ted McMillan.
ding,
Tyler Warren.
ding,
Tyler Booker. Nope. Jackson Dart.
ding.
Did I say Abdul Carter?
You did?
Okay. Will Campbell.
Eh.
Oh, I'm starting to run out of guys.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, boy. Dylan Gabriel. Oh, boy.
Dylan Gabriel.
How many do I have?
You've got 8. You're lacking 2.
Colston Loveland?
Ding.
Okay, I got one more left. Mm-hmm. Omarion Hampton. Oh, what? Oh, no.
You got 10 seconds. You're 9 out of 10 right now, my
who's the
guy.
receiver that the Matthew Golden?
Ding, 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 ding. He got all 10.
Oh.
He got all 10.
I am resentful because Jahdae Barron, my Broncos pick, was not on the top 10.
Nobody wants a corner right out of the bat. They only want a corner if it's
Matthew
got...
Golden, huh?
Yeah, Matthew Golden. So
That's
let's talk a
cool.
little bit about the numbers, though. Travis Hunter's number 1. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Cam Ward's number 2. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Shedeur Sanders is number 3.
Not shocking at all. I thought he'd be number 1.
Oh, people are so weird. People are so weird. Give me that 5th round, 144th pick overall. It would look an orange Browns jersey that says, or the Browns jersey
Oh, that'll be hot seller.
that says Sanders on the back. Be pretty cool.
Yep.
Now the thing is like, do we know? Because they get the name on the back. Do we know the number that for sure they're going to have?
They picked their number, yeah.
Way prior to all this.
Well, yeah, as soon as they draft them, they give them their number.
But aren't there some guys who they go, that you can't have that number, man?
Sure,
Someone's-
yeah. Remember
I
the
get
whole
it.
Warren Moon, Cam Ward thing?
Yeah,
Warren
but
Moon
that
had to
makes
give
sense.
give Cam Ward permission.
Right, but if Jackson Dart comes in and goes, I'm going to be number 10, and then
somebody,
they're all,
it was somebody for the Giants. Who was taken by the? Oh, it was Abdul Carter wanted to wear 56.
oh, you can't be Lawrence Taylor.
LT said no.
Yeah,
you haven't
can't
earned
be-
it yet.
No, can't be number 56. I agree with him, by the way. So
I wouldn't want to be 56 because he's a piece
no,
of crap.
Well,
But-
there's that, and there's also there's 2 reasons you don't want to be. Not
Yeah.
a good dude.
Yeah.
Also, kind of a lot to live up to.
Yeah,
from
I
a
wouldn't want that
performance,
pressure on myself. So slow your roll, Abdul Carter.
But here's the rest of the ranking as well. So Ashton Genty's 4.
Oh, a Genty Raiders jersey is gonna look nice.
Ted McMillan's 5.
Okay.
Nobody wants a Panthers jersey, right?
The Panthers jerseys look nice.
Jackson
Their
Dart.
colors are nice.
Jackson Dart actually weighs in at 6.
It's New York and it's the Giants.
So
Ahead of Abdul Carter.
He's the second highest, not in the top 10. Obviously, Shedeur Sanders being
That's
the
cool.
144th pick, the number 25 pick, because it goes 2-1, 144, 6-8, 25. Abdul Carter is number 7 on the list, and he's number 3. Again, edge rusher, not as cool and sexy as a quarterback or a running back, right?
Right.
So, Matthew Golden for the Packers, he was the 23rd overall pick. Packers fans go crazy, right? Tyler Warren with the Colts jersey at number 9, and then Colson Loveland at number 10 for the. And by the way, of all the teams on the list, in terms of like the one that you look good going around town in, I don't hate the Jags jerseys. I just don't like the Jags as an organization, so it kind of is weird. But like the black Jags jersey with the teal trim looks good. The Raiders looks freaking good. All right?
The Bears uniforms are...
The Bears uniforms are elite.
Nice.
Giants uniforms, classic.
Yep.
Okay?
Red,
Packers,
white, and blue.
obviously classic, even though they're yellow and freaking green.
Barf.
But, like, the Colts don't speak much to me in terms of that. I mean, I know it's a good look because it's just blue and white, but it doesn't do much for me. But the Bears... On this list, the elite-looking jerseys, the dopest-looking jerseys, Ashton Jeanty, in my opinion, and Colson Loveland. The Black Raiders jersey and the Navy old-school Bears jersey with the GSH on it, the George Halas, initials on there.
I'm surprised the Chargers Amarian Hampton jersey. The
Pretty crazy.
The Chargers have no fans.
Right, and if the Rams would have picked somebody like...
People in L.A. don't care about the Chargers.
They really don't. They really don't. I mean, you got to come to Utah to find
But an
Rams
Amarian
fans.
Hampton powder blue Chargers jersey probably looks pretty nice.
Yeah. Okay. There's your top 10 for the day. Congrats, JJ. Nice job.
It's the first 10 sweep we've got.
Well, it is.
More
and
to
you were
come.
close. I mean, that was right at the buzzer there, too.
That was close.
We had just a few seconds left.
I had to
so
throw
good
a
job.
Matthew Golden out of there.
All right,
That was
let's
tough.
take the break here. We'll come back. We'll chat NBA playoffs next. What's going to be on your dial tonight, but also how these teams that are now moving on. You've got teams that are moving on in the playoffs. You've got teams who are trying to move on, but we've got a lot to chat about still when it comes to these NBA playoffs. So stay here, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.